button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we got to make sure the tubes connect themselves. Otherwise, we just start rambling off into the ether, and nobody likes that. Well, because, it's just me sort of just blabbing off over here, which has happened more times than I care to admit. But it looks like it's working, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the word intelligence. We're asking ourselves whether the White House has any of it, or whether the House Intelligence Committee has any of it, whether Joe Biden does, because he has a real difficult time even remembering the names of the people in his cabinet. We're going to go through this one today. We've got three good segments that we're going to dive into. First one is about the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy is booting out Pencil Neck Schiff and Stinky Eric Swalwell. They got the boot. We're going to go through this. A letter came back from Kevin McCarthy. On the show yesterday, we read the request from Hakeem Jeffries, the newest minority leader in the House of Representatives. He said, all right, look, here are my nominees. It's Swalwell and Schiff. Well, today we're going to see McCarthy said, not so fast there, bucko. Not going to happen. And McCarthy had a very nice mic drop moment. It's about a 4-minute just blast. We're just going to let it ride. Very satisfying. We'll talk about that. And then once we go through that, we'll take a look at the Intelligence Committee, because, it's always good to refresh our memories about how these things work and what they're supposed to do. We are going to look at the actual founding resolution that was passed back in 1977 that detailed the formation. We'll learn about the new chairman who's going to be in charge of this. Remember, Jim Jordan's in charge of oversight. We'll learn about Mike Turner, who's going to be in charge of intelligence. And we'll check in with Mike Pompeo, who's former CIA director and also on the Intelligence Committee. So we'll check in with all those people. Then we'll turn our attention to the Democrats' crybaby reaction. Pencil Neck is like out there. He's like, this is because I indicted Trump, huh? It's because I led the impeachment against him. And then we'll go over to Swalwell. We'll go over to Omar. They're all upset about it. And then we'll leave it with Karine and see what she had to say about the boot. Then we'll turn our attention over to the White House. Now, the White House is still reeling from this document scandal. They have a really difficult time sort of coming to a cohesive narrative that explains the cover-up that they tried to shove down our throats. And so the Republicans are pouncing on this. Ted Cruz delivered a couple good clips that we'll go through. And he's very good when he is on fire. He's pretty much there. He was explaining that he's been a senator for a long time. He's read a ton of classified documents. And he said, when you go into a skiff, this is how it works. He's going to explain it to us. He's going to walk us through. You do this, you do this, you do this. And it was very interesting to hear it from somebody who does this probably a lot. We'll check in with him. We've got Comer, who is talking about influence peddling. We'll also turn our attention to Stefanik, who is currently in the running to lead the Republican Party. She's being asked about this, lead the GOP. And she had some comments on the Pence development and the Hunter stuff as well. Karine Jean-Pierre answered a couple questions. We got actually some interesting stuff from John Kirby. And remember, earlier in this week, there was a little question about whether Karine was going to be shown the door as well, because we know Ron Klain is getting booted. So is Karine also going to get the boot? We don't know. And many people were speculating that John Kirby might be somebody who would be, a nice little slot in there. Now, the problem is John Kirby is a white male, so I'm not sure that's going to work for them. But he is very effective, a lot more effective than Karine. We'll take a look at his quotes today. A couple other questions for Karine, mostly useless. We also had Joe Biden actually gave a talk today, which is pretty interesting. And in order to divert the attention away from his cover-up, they're sending 31 Abrams tanks over to Ukraine so that World War III can sort of distract everybody from the probably the 5th and 6th batches of documents that will probably come out of his diapers at some point later on in this month. So we had very interesting quotes from him. They're laughing about this story as reporters are demanding answers. Biden literally forgets who Lloyd Austin is, which is the Secretary of Defense. He doesn't know who he is. And Chuck Schumer is, for some reason, blasting Republicans who seem to be mostly in working order. So we'll go through there in that second segment. Then in our final segment, there was a pretty massive story that we're going to really dive into today about this fella, Charles McGonigal, top senior ex-FBI agent, like top senior, arrested 2 different indictments for Russian collusion, allegedly. Ex-FBI agent, okay, senior. He was in charge. He was back over there in like 2018. He was involved in the Trump-Russia investigation. We're going to get a lot of background on this from Newsweek, and we're going to go through 2 full indictments, one out of the Washington, D.C. circuit, the other one out of the Southern District of New York. Both of those we'll take a look at, as well as the search warrant and more. And so Matt Gaetz had some clips on that, and we'll take a look at what the FBI thinks of themselves in this ridiculous whatever this is. So we'll go through that one. And of course, we'll have to invite you to be a part of the show because we've got a lot to get to, as you can see. And the best place to be a part of the show is by going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see this amazing URL right there on the screen. We've got an awesome community chatting away over there. I see Dana's in the house. We've got C. Reed, Karaoke Princess, John Allen, Tweakstone in the house. We got Jay Cutbirth, Henry G. Says these idiots want World War III. That's true, Henry. You're dead right about that. Kay Tyler's in the house. We got a lot of new names joining us over on Locals, and we're happy to see them hop in the chat and make their voices heard. We love participation. We also want to thank our sponsors. Thank you for supporting our sponsors, our 4Patriots friends for survival food, survival gear if you need it. 4patriots.com is the place to go. 10% off when you use code Robert. Also, support our friends over at Goldco. If you have retirement or savings that you want to protect with gold and silver, that's the company to help you with that. RobertLikesGold.com. I do like gold. We also have our friends at Brickhouse Nutrition, where you can go get your field of greens and be very healthy and vibrant. And if you are interested in being extra healthy and vibrant, well, I'll show you a picture of that later. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, we also have our law firm, the R&R Law Group, where we help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. And of course, thank you for supporting our law firm at rrlawaz.com. If you know anybody in the state of Arizona who needs help, that's what we do. All right. And so now let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of the day, my friends. Kevin McCarthy coming in hot in the new House of Representatives, booted pencil neck watermelon head Schiff right out of there. He's not going to be on the Intelligence Committee anymore. Good riddance. The guy was a disaster for America and for intelligence. We're going to go through the rejection today, and we'll also take a look at Schiff and Swalwell, who also got rejected, and Omar, who also got rejected, their reaction, as well as reaction from the White House. But let's take a look at what Kevin McCarthy dropped right on the head of Schiff. And remember, previously on this channel, we talked about the letter that came out from Hakeem Jeffries. He sent it over to McCarthy, and he said, hey, Kevin, this is who I want to nominate for your Intelligence Committee. And McCarthy, we knew, was going to have a problem with some of those nominations. Why? Because the Republicans got a nice big fat backhand time and time again when Speaker Pelosi was in charge of the House of Representatives. They wanted and nominated many people, including Jim Jordan, to be on the so-called fake select committee. Jim Jordan was nominated. Pelosi said, no thanks, not going to do that. So now it is happening in reverse. McCarthy wrote this on Twitter. He said, America, guess what? I have rejected the appointments of Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell for the House Intelligence Committee. This is a big committee. We're going to learn a lot more about it in a minute. I am committed to returning the House Intel Committee to one of genuine honesty and credibility that regains the trust of the American people. Good call there, Kevin. We like to see that. And of course, he posted that over on Twitter. And that sent the Democrats a tizzy. They're unhappy. We'll go through the reaction from all of them and learn more about the committee itself. But Kevin also formally rejected this. He sent a letter over from the Speaker of the House's office directly to Hakeem Jeffries. And here's what he says. January 24th, 2023, from the desk of your new House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House. How's that feel? He writes this over to the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader at the Capitol. Which I wonder, do they just like walk this down the room and just drop it in the mailbox or what? Dear Leader Jeffries, writes Kevin McCarthy, thank you for your letter dated on January 21st regarding pencil neck Schiff and Swalwell. He says, I appreciate the loyalty you have to your Democratic colleagues, and I acknowledge your efforts to have 2 members of Congress reinstated to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. But Kevin says, but I cannot put partisan loyalty ahead of national security here, Hakeem. And I cannot simply recognize years of service as the sole criteria for membership on this essential committee. McCarthy says integrity matters more. As such, he says, in order to maintain a standard worthy of this committee's responsibilities, I am hereby rejecting the appointments of Representative Adam Schiff and Representative Eric Swalwell to serve on the Intelligence Committee. He says, it's my assessment that the misuse of this panel during the prior Congresses, the 116th and the 117th, which were under the poor stewardship of Nancy Pelosi, both of those severely undermined its primary national security and oversight missions, like becoming a weaponized version of a government, ultimately leaving our nation less safe, writes Kevin. Therefore, as we enter a new Congress, I am committed to returning the Intelligence Committee to one of genuine honesty and credibility that regains the trust of the American people. Signed, sincerely, your friend, Kevin McCarthy. Over to Hakeem and over to Pencilneck and all of the others. And so they're very unhappy about this. Now, Kevin McCarthy also nominated a bunch of people for various subcommittees. And so let's take a look at what those look like before we learn more about the committees themselves and hear from Kevin McCarthy. Now, there were a bunch of committees that made their way out. Let's take a look at some of them. We have this first one, which is the Committee on the House Administration. You probably recognize some names on here, but nobody really stands out as sort of a firebrand or a fire thrower. It's House Administration. So what are they doing? Scheduling and stuff? I have no idea. But here you recognize Loudermilk, Griffith, Murphy, Bice, Carrie Lee D'Esposito from New York. We've got Weil from Wisconsin is going to be the chairman. We also have this one, the coronavirus pandemic. Oh, perfect. Looking forward to this one. The coronavirus pandemic select subcommittee. Who's on this one? Well, chairman is Brad Wenstrup from Ohio. We've got Nicole from New York. We got Marionette Miller Meeks from Iowa. Debbie from Arizona. Shout out to Arizona. Michael Cloud from Texas. We've got John Joyce, Pennsylvania. Georgia has Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, well, that's fun. So she's going to be on this subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, which is going to be fun. Be looking forward to a commentary on this, which we'll see if we can play. Otherwise, it's going over to Rumble. We've got Representative Ronnie Jackson from Texas, who I do believe is a doctor, by the way. And he, I think, was Trump's physician, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be on this pandemic committee as well. Rich McCormick from Georgia is also on the list. We move on. Now, we're familiar with this one. We're very excited about this one. The Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Federal Government. A lot of familiar names here. We know Elise Stefanik, who we're going to hear from in a little later on the show. Our good friend Thomas Massey, big fan of his from Kentucky. Of course, Jim Jordan is going to be the chairman, also from Ohio. Ohio's represented a lot on the chairman board. Dan Bishop, Kelly Armstrong, our friend Chip Roy from Texas is on the Weaponization Committee oversight. And look who's down here at the bottom. Isn't this one fun? This is Harriet Hageman. Remember who she replaced? Oh, yeah, that loser, Liz Cheney, who lost by 40 points in her Wyoming, got thrown on her butt. And so she got replaced by Harriet Hageman, brand new, first year in the House of Representatives. Boom, she's on the Weaponization of Federal Government Committee. Love it. Oh, that stings, huh? That stings for old Lizzie. So we move on, and there are some more. This is the one that, also that has a lot of eyeballs perked. The Strategic Competition Committee for the U.S. and Chinese Communist Party. Let's see who is on this one. We've got Whitman, Lukemire, Barr, a lot of names. Jim Banks is on here. We have Michelle Steele, Carlos Jimenez from Florida, Ashley Hinson, and some others. So, I don't really recognize a lot of these names, but hopefully they are some entrepreneurs or some tech bros or some people who know actually how to run a business and do things. We have this one, the big one, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Who's on this? Michael Turner. We're going to learn a lot more about him in a minute. Stuart Crawford, Wenstrup, Elise Stefanik. We have Gallagher Scott, and look at this guy, Dan Crenshaw on the Intelligence Committee. Isn't that nice? Dan Crenshaw, which is perfect because he's basically CIA and intelligence anyways. He's sort of this created Ken doll version of America, and he's going to go out there and represent Texas on the committee. So that is what the makeup of all these various committees look like. Kevin McCarthy is dropping some bombs on that. And he came out, and when he was asked about this by the press, man, he delivered a home run. This is Kevin McCarthy not taking any guff from the media. They said, hey, what are you doing? How could you possibly throw Schiff and Swalwell off of these committees? I mean, they're very intelligent, and they've been on these committees for so long. What gives, Kev?
Intel committee. Is Santos on the Intel committee? Am I allowing Schiff to be on other committees?
Let's boost this volume here a little bit before we carry on so that we can hear it appropriately.
Intel committee. Is Santos on the Intel committee? Am I allowing Schiff to be on other committees? Go right ahead.
Respectfully, thank you. Because you have direct power over who goes on the intelligence committee, you also will be able to raise for your full House, taking off other Democrats, perhaps Representative Omar. But you have said that lying to us is something that means you should be removed from the intelligence committee. But why is it not a factor?
Well, let me be very.
This is a man who should not be on committee, something you do have power over.
He's got elected by his district, so. Okay,
wow.
Let me be very clear.
The reporter just screamed at him, you're not answering my question.
He's gotten elected by his district, so. Okay, let me be very clear and respectful to you. You ask me a question. When I answer it, it's the answer to your question.
Whoa.
You don't get to determine whether I answer your question or not. Okay?
Whoa.
In all respect.
Sorry, Kev. Okay, sorry.
No.
Sorry,
Let's
Kev.
answer her question. You just raised a
Yikes.
question. I'm going to be very clear with you. The Intel Committee is different. You know why? Because what happens in the Intel Committee, you don't know. What happens in the Intel Committee, although the secrets are going on in the world, other members of Congress don't know. What did Adam Schiff do as the chairman of the Intel Committee?
Lied.
What Adam Schiff did, use his power as the chairman and lie to the American public. Even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians. When he knew different, when he knew the intel, if you talk to John Radcliffe, DNI, he came out ahead of time and says there's no intel to prove that, and he used his position as chairman, knowing he has information the rest of America does not, and lied to the American public. When a whistleblower came forward, he said he did not know the individual, even though his staff had met with him and set it up. So no, he does not have a right to sit on that. But I will not be like Democrats and play politics with these, where they removed Republicans from committees and all committees. So yes, he can serve on a committee, but he will not serve on intel because it goes to the national security of America. And I will always put them first, all right? And if you want to talk about Swalwell, let's talk about Swalwell.
Let's do it.
Because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI. The FBI never came before this Congress to tell the leadership of this Congress that Eric Swalwell had a problem with a Chinese spy until he served on intel. So it wasn't just us who were concerned about it. The FBI was concerned about putting a member of Congress on the Intel Committee that has the rights to see things that others don't because of his knowledge and relationship with a Chinese spy.
Fang Fang. They made Bang Bang.
They brought it to the works of the leaders. I've got that briefing. So I do not believe he should sit on that committee. And I believe there's 200 other Democrats that can serve on that committee. So this has nothing to do with Santos. Santos is not on the Intel Committee. But you know what? Those voters elected Schiff, even though he lied. Those voters elected Swalwell, even though he lied to the American public too. So you know what? I'll respect his voters too, and they'll serve on committees, but they will not serve on a place that has national security relevance because integrity matters to me. That's the answer to your question.
Sorry, lady. Yeah, sorry. That's the nice question from whoever that was. Kevin McCarthy said, I'll go ahead and give you the answer that you deserve. And he lays it on her nice and well, right? Kevin McCarthy detailed for us all of the problems with Adam Schiff. We've covered many of them here. The Nunes memo, he covered up for the Hunter Biden laptop. He weaponized, in my opinion, the FBI and the DOJ to go after all sorts of fake Republicans, essentially. Republicans who were allegedly engaged in criminality. They were not, right? Pencil neck Adam Schiff was sending emails from his staff email accounts over to the Twitter files and saying, can you please censor this for me? It's really offensive to my staff, right? That's the type of people that we're dealing with. And they are not going to be on the Intelligence Committee anymore. Let's learn more about this committee and how powerful it is. Now, if you actually go over to their website, this is the House Select Committee on Intelligence. They don't tell us much, okay? Like these intelligence agencies. Here's our history and jurisdiction section. It's one page. It's actually one paragraph. The United States House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, created in 1977, is charged with oversight of the United States intelligence community, which includes intelligence and intelligence-related activities in the following 17 elements of the U.S. government. Okay, do you realize this? You realize how many different intelligence agencies we have? Look at him. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the CIA, Counterintelligence, Department of the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Defense Intelligence, Energy, DHS, Homeland Security, State, DEA, Drug, Treasury. They've all got little intelligence, wings of everything that they do. The FBI, Marine Corps, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, the NSA, the National Security Agency, and the Department of Navy. All of them. Wow. They really, and they can't keep track of any confidential classified documents, evidently. And they also can't protect, the Capitol building from a pre-planned riot where about 900 people got charged with crimes. This is it. Job well done, everybody. Good job. All right. So that is what they apparently do, right? They're monitoring all of these agencies. Now, we'll see if they can do anything about it, because every time they subpoena them to come in there, or don't even subpoena them, but request they come in to give them a briefing, people like Christopher Wray say they just have to go. Oh, we're really busy. We can't stick around. Sorry, we've got vacation. Now, let's learn about the origin of this committee. Passed in the 95th Congress back in 1977. We're rewinding the clock a bit. Mr. Wright submitted this resolution. This is what established the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Back in the 1970s, they knew the intelligence community was a gigantic stinking problem. They say this body is created to oversee and make continuing studies of intelligence and related activities related to the U.S. government. And they're supposed to submit to the House appropriate proposals for legislation, and also to report to the House concerning the intelligence and intelligence activities and programs. They shall make every effort to assure that the appropriate departments and agencies provide informed and timely intelligence necessary for the security and vital interests of the nation. It is to further purpose that all of these activities are done in conformity with the Constitution. Look, it is further the purpose of this resolution to provide vigilant legislative oversight over the intelligence and intelligence-related activities to the U.S. to ensure that their activities are in conformity with the Constitution. They are not, right? They are not in conformity with the Constitution. They are censoring people from the FBI offices, crapping all over free speech everywhere they turn. Excuse my language. The majority leader of the House and minority shall be ex officio members. No member shall serve for more than 6 years of continuous service. Let's see what else we have. The CIA. They're talking about, all of these different agencies. And look how many have come since this time. How many new agencies do we have since they passed this originally? 17 of them. Probably going to need a few more. Looking forward to the White Supremacy Agency and the Online Disinformation Agency and all of the other garbage agencies that they will create for us soon enough. So that is what it looks like. The person who's going to be in charge of it is this fellow. His name is Chairman Mike Turner. He was born 1960. He's an American politician from Ohio, member of the Republican Party. He's going to be running the Intelligence Committee. Non-denominational, Protestant Christian, political science major, JD from Case Western Reserve. Also went to Georgetown, was a mayor, got elected in 2002 when somebody else retired. And anything else interesting about him? Okay, he's a member of the Armed Services and Government Reform Committees. Due to his urban background, he was a mayor. Here's a picture of him with Trump. Turner with President Trump in 2020. Did you do any work with him? Veterans Affairs Committee. Introduced bipartisan legislation with Hillary Clinton, to preserve America. and some other things. All right. So a little bit more about him, right? Nothing really stands out. It looks like they would codify the right to same-sex marriage. So probably just, a nice sort of seniority promotion for Mike Turner. But the question is about the Democrats and how upset they are. Mike Pompeo, you may remember him, former CIA director and somebody who also has spent time on the House Select Intelligence Committee, is now going to be sharing with us his take on some of this. And let me turn this volume off if I can click the right button here. And we'll listen to Mike Pompeo.
What say you about the Speaker's decisions?
So I had the incredible privilege to serve on that committee. It covers the most classified, most difficult stuff. Not every member of Congress gets to see the information that the Intelligence Committee sees. And Adam Schiff lied to the American people.
Yeah.
And during my time as CIA director and Secretary of State, I know that he leaked classified information that had been provided to him. Now,
leaked classified information that had been provided to him. He said, I was CIA director and I was the Secretary of State, right? So presumably he had access to the same information. He knows who also had access to the information. Adam Schiff was one of them. That information got out. Where did it come from? He says Schiff.
The fact that Adam Schiff was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee almost ruined that committee. It serves an incredibly important function for the American people. Speaker McCarthy got this one exactly right. Adam Schiff should be nowhere near serving on the Intelligence Committee. I don't think he should be seeing classified information.
He shouldn't be, because he is a hyper-partisan person who uses these institutions to go after Republicans, as we have seen repeatedly. So we're going to take a look at Adam Schiff and Swalwell and Omar and the White House, because they're all very upset that they got basically fired off of this very important committee right after we talk about our friends over at 4Patriots, where you can get your survival food and your survival gear and use code Robert, because as you know, a food shortage could be coming even here in the United States. Experts have talked about this as recently as July of last year. We've got drought, inflation, new policies, America's food supplies getting pushed to its breaking point. That's why survival food and gear is more important than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriots survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years. Super survival food. It's hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, gives jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant. Many different delicious meals, breakfast, lunches, and dinners. You can make them in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including a 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. My friends, they're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale goes to charities that support our veterans and their families, and you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Save 10% off anything that you order on your first purchase, and get your survival gear so that you don't starve to death or freeze to death and evaporate into thin air from our friends at 4patriots.com. So the Democrats are very upset that they're losing control of a very important committee, and we're going to start with Pencil Neck Watermelon Head, who is vowing that he's going to continue to fight on, and this will not be the end of Schiff.
Mr. McCarthy's rationalizations, justifications keep shifting. The cardinal sin appears to be that I led the impeachment of his master in Mar-a-Lago.
That's a new
for
phrase,
withholding hundreds
master
of
at
millions of
Mar-a-Lago.
dollars in military aid from Ukraine, a nation that was even then at war with Russia, in order to extort that country into helping Donald Trump's re-election campaign. We proved those facts and got the first bipartisan vote in the Senate in history to remove a president. Kevin McCarthy calls that a hoax. Well, it was not a hoax, but he will do the former president's bidding. He is entirely reliant on the former president, and this is something the former president wants.
All right, so very upset. He's saying, I am being made to be a scapegoat, right? I'm being blamed here. Kevin McCarthy is so mad that I went after the master at Mar-a-Lago, right? They're all basic. He's trying to connect everybody over to Trumpo and sort of guilt by association thing there going on. But he's saying that he didn't lie. I think that there's very good evidence that he did. We've covered all of these stories at length. He's not on there anymore. It's very good news for America, not good news for the Democrats. He had a lot of power on that committee. Swalwell's also upset about this. he is responding as well. And Swalwell, we heard from previously, Swalwell has kind of hinted, as has Adam Schiff, that they have a plan. They have some sort of alternative strategy for continuing to have leverage in the House of Representatives, even though they're not on these committees anymore.
You're seeing now the fulfillment of Kevin McCarthy's corrupt bargain, a corrupt bargain with Marjorie Taylor Greene, somebody who declared on January 5, the day before the attack on the Capitol, that this is 1776, someone who cheered on the insurrectionists, somebody who, as we honor the police officers who were injured that day, she goes to the D.C. jail to make sure that insurrectionists are taken care of. The first time this person's ever cared about the conditions of a jail is when insurrectionists are inside it. She's going on.
Oh, come on. Kamala Harris was raising funds to bail out rioters in Minnesota, weirdo.
On the Homeland Security Committee. It's too rich that the day that George Santos, yesterday, admits to the Federal Election Commission that he defrauded them in his statement that he put $500,000 of his own money into the campaign. It's too rich that the day that he admits that he lied to a federal agency, that the ranking member of the Intel Committee is pulled off the committee. It's just too rich that...
Would you like to comment on your relationship with Fang Fang, please, sir?
As the three of us are about to lose our committees, this corrupt bargain also enables Paul Gosar, who depicted himself killing a colleague, goes on to a committee. And it's too rich that this corrupt bargain also includes $75 billion to defund the troops, defund the troops by $75 billion, a part of the promises that he made for this corrupt bargain. So we are caught up in this corrupt bargain. It doesn't feel good at all. It doesn't feel good personally, but that's not what's important. It doesn't feel good for the country and the Congress because they ran on inflation, crime, border, and they're not taking on any of that. This is the nonsense they're focused on.
Man, it's just crying. I mean, I don't even know what to say in response to that. It's just, you just lost, bro. Like, you just lost. Like, you don't get to keep your committees. Like, what are you, nuts? So when Pelosi was in here and booted everybody else off and the Republicans were screaming it was corrupt, did you agree with them? This is just the pendulum swinging back and forth. But it is enjoyable because they are very upset about it. Look at it. He looked like he had a bad night's sleep last night, too. Not happy because they know that the Republicans are going to... Basically, what they were doing is sort of giving everybody political enemas from on this committee for the last 4 years or so. Ever since they got control of it, every single person, right, got the subpoenas and all of the criminal referrals to the DOJ, and there's various committees that were involved in this. But remember, Schiff was also on the House Select... He was on the Intelligence Committee, but also on the J6 Committee, right? Remember, he was sort of crossing over to all over the place. He was this go-between, sort of this elusive, just disgusting little mole scurrying around the bowels of D.C., interspersing himself between all the different intelligence agencies and Congress. And so they're going to lose control of that. That's all going back into the hands of the Republicans. And I hope, I've said for a long time, I hope they basically do what the Democrats did and fight fire with fire. We'll see if they do that, because if they don't, they're going to get, I think, taken out by the Democrats, who are willing to do whatever it takes to eliminate them. Karine Jean-Pierre gets asked about this just horrific moment where these three just absolutely stunning public servants who sacrificed themselves for this country are being removed from the committee.
Any reaction from you from the White House about Speaker McCarthy's decision to keep Representative Schiff and Swalwell from the Intelligence Committee?
So I'll say this. Representative Schiff, Representative Swalwell, and also Representative Omar are, our expertise and bring a lot to the table when it comes to foreign policy and national security. And we'll say this, we'll say that, when it comes to that committee, it should not be politicized. It should be independent. And again, those congressional members bring a lot of expertise to that committee, and I'll leave it there.
Yes, they are very, very sacred and very important. We're going to miss them all dearly. But here is our final clip from the Democrats upset about this. Here is Omar. Omar is going to give us her life story. We're going to hear about her very troubled upbringing and how difficult her life was, before she reminds us that since she's not on a committee anymore, America's over. Sorry, America. Our democracy is now at threat.
As a child who survived war, lived in a refugee camp, I would have never imagined that I would one day have the opportunity to serve on a subcommittee on Africa, global health, and global human rights. I would not have believed that I would one day not just serve as the first African-born member of Congress, but on a committee that oversees policies towards the continent. Kevin McCarthy's purely partisan move to strip us from our committee is not only a political stunt, but also a blow to the integrity of our democratic institution.
Wow.
And threat to our national security.
Wow, a threat to our national security. That Ilhan Omar is not going to be on some committee that has, I guess, a connection to Africa. All right. Well, very, very dramatic. I mean, hopefully nothing actually bad happens in their lives, because if it does, I don't even know what their reaction would be. So, all right, that's the Democrats. That's Kevin McCarthy saying, get out of here so long. It's our Congress now. I'm in charge, and they are out of there. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll continue to cover, of course, and I hope you subscribe. Thank you for liking this video, wherever it is you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Now, we have some serious updates on the Biden document situation, because the Republicans are ready to go in hot. Republicans coming in hot, going after Joe Biden. They can sense fear in the White House. There's a lot of talk about a cover-up. They know that there are probably more documents floating around out there. The Republicans are now in control of a bunch of House committees, including the Intelligence Committee, including the Oversight Committee, and Republicans are ready to go. We start today with Ted Cruz, as well as some other Republicans, including Comer, Stefanik, before we turn our attention to the White House, see what they have to say to explain this away. Before we hear from the president, who actually gave a speech today, we'll check in to see if he had a document update for us. But Ted Cruz, very unhappy with what he has seen from President Biden, who previous to this day was Vice President Biden. Before that, Senator Biden, which guess what? That's what Ted Cruz is. He's been a senator for a long time, just like Joe Biden was. And Ted Cruz explains to us exactly how the SCIF works and how it's so amazing that Joe Biden happened to have these documents with him.
He has given no explanation as to how he has documents from his time in the Senate. Listen, I've served in the Senate for 10 years. I have read a lot of classified documents. 100% of the classified documents I have read have been in the SCIF in the basement of the Capitol, the secure facilities. You go in there, you give them your phone, you give them your AirPods, you give them your Fitbit, you give all electronics, you sit behind giant steel doors and concrete, you read the documents there, you sign them out, you read them there, and then you sign them back in. In my entire time in the Senate, I have never read a classified document anywhere other than in the SCIF. There are enormous questions what the heck Joe Biden was doing with classified documents at his house from his Senate tenure. Look, we know during the Bill Clinton presidency, Sandy Berger, the national security advisor, literally took classified documents and stuck them into his underwear to smuggle them out of a secure SCIF. It raises an obvious question: where did these documents come from? And Biden so far has refused to answer them.
His underwear.
And Karine Jean-Pierre, it has been painful to watch as what she says every day is proven false literally the next day.
Yeah, it is very painful, Ted. And it's a good question. I do like the Sandy Berger analogy. We talked about that one yesterday a little bit, where Sandy walked out of there with documents in his pants and in his socks. He shoved them in there. Was that what Joe Biden was doing? Did anybody check his diapers over the last 25 years? Nobody knows. But Ted Cruz also has another point on this, where he's saying extend the search. Maybe we need to dive in further and figure out what else Biden has left behind.
Number one, I think it was clearly a cover-up. They claim they discovered this on November 2nd. That was a week before the election. And the Biden White House covered it up. The Department of Justice covered it up. The FBI covered it up. When it comes to Donald Trump, they leak like a sieve. They tell you everything they're doing, and yet miraculously they managed to keep this the most hidden state secret. I think it was right next to the nuclear codes, not to let anyone know that apparently Joe Biden leaves classified documents, practically in the glove compartment of his Corvette.
And in his diapers. And he's dead right about this, right? They have lied to us many times over this. Karine Jean-Pierre came out and gave us press briefings when the White House knew about December 20th documents that had been found, 2 batches. They only told us about 1 batch. They also got a question directly from the press saying, has the search been completed, more or less? And she said, yeah, it's done. We're not going to find anything else. They found batches 3 and 4 after that. We learned also that the day of the appointment of special counsel, there was the third batch of documents that was found. We heard not from the White House, we heard from the Washington Post that had some anonymous sources somewhere that the Department of Justice, through Merrick Garland, which is in Biden's cabinet, sent a letter from John Lausch over to Biden's personal lawyers after they found the first batch and said, stop searching for the documents. You don't have authorization or whatever the letter said to continue to search. Stop searching. Why did they find the second batch then in December 20th when they got a letter in mid-November that said, stop it? Because they were obstructing, or they had shredders, or they were doing something with burnt vehicles igniting spontaneously after the Secret Service used them. A lot of very interesting things going on here. And you can compare and contrast that. That is obstruction as far as I can tell. DOJ said, don't do something. We're investigating you. They did the thing and interfered directly with the investigation, literally. If they're going to charge Trump with obstruction for making a legal claim, right, for actually saying, yes, I have the documents, but they're mine, then they have to charge Biden with obstruction and his lawyers for directly interfering with an investigation when they got a letter that said don't. Now, if the Washington Post is wrong and that letter never went out, then we'll come back here and eat it. But they said specifically December 20th, second batch was found. We know that on record from Merrick Garland as well. Obstruction.
About everywhere he seems to go. I think, secondly, it's just a mess. It is a mess. It is incompetent. It is corrupt. That is an enormous political problem for the Biden White House. It's a political problem for the Biden DOJ, which I think wants to indict President Trump. And they now have an obvious double standard that is jumping off the page.
But they're going to try to separate it, charge Trump with obstruction only for being uncooperative, even though he had a proper legal claim, in my opinion, to retain those documents. And Joe Biden doesn't get charged at all because he was cooperative.
But the next steps, there are two big next steps.
What is
Number
it?
one, we need to finish examining what other classified documents
Yes.
Joe Biden has failed to keep secure. That
Yes.
means that the FBI needs to search. There are over 1,850 boxes of documents from Biden's tenure in the Senate that are at the University of Delaware. I do a podcast 3 times a week. My last podcast on Verdict with Ted Cruz does a...
Make sure you go subscribe to his podcast. He always drops it in these little segments here. He wants some more subscribers. You can't blame him. You've got to shill your podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video wherever you're watching it.
Deep dive into this issue, walking through the legal issues, the vulnerabilities. I believe the FBI should search all of those 1,850 boxes of documents to determine if there are classified materials there. But additionally, I believe the FBI needs to search the residences of Hunter Biden and any business offices of Hunter Biden to determine if there are classified materials there. Because if these classified materials in particular implicate Burisma, Ukraine, Communist China, payments going to Hunter Biden or Joe Biden's brother or the Biden family, then this shifts from a political problem to a very serious problem of criminal liability and major crimes. And so the FBI needs to search the University of Delaware archives, and they need to search Hunter Biden's home and business address.
Great. I want helicopters. I want those dudes jumping out of the side of the helicopter on zip lines, crashing into the front lawn of Hunter Biden with all of his hookers lying all over the place. Would be a lot of fun to see. So Ted Cruz, I think, has some good ideas. And, you know, I didn't know that there were 100,000 plus boxes of materials over at the Delaware Center. Could you speculate about the number of classified materials in there? Probably 1 or 2 documents, maybe. So we might have another 5th batch in Rehoboth. We might have a 6th batch in the Delaware Senate records. Who knows where else these documents might turn up? It's just going to be the gift that keeps on giving for everybody else except Joe Biden. Now, we've also heard a lot from James Comer, big fan of his work. He is also on the Oversight Committee, and he's really helping, I think, Jim Jordan as sort of the deputy who's just firing off these letters and making all of these media appearances. He does a lot of these. And he is asked on this one about the Biden family and sort of about what Congress's take is going to be, especially because we're seeing some new emails come out, right? Some emails popped out that people are calling back to attention, including this one. Hunter Biden emailed to Kathy Chung, which was one of Biden's assistants or I think interns or secretaries or legal person, right, moving documents around. And an email said, Hunter Biden emailed to Kathy, actually work, quote, for me and with Eric, actually do actual work with Eric and Joan so that I can make everyone money, right? There's some interesting emails going back and forth.
Work for him and his business partners. The other things I can do with.
I'm there, Hunt. I'm going to go talk to your dad about the possibly other things I can do with him and stay on with him. Put in a good word for me, right? So Hunter is the bag man for Joe Biden. He is engaging in all of these deals, making big sums of money. Now he's selling his artist. He's an artist now, you know that. And Comer details how this all might connect itself together. Let's listen.
One of the emails said it all, where he's trying to get her to go work for his associate who was going to do all the work, but then Hunter was going to make everybody money. So the business was the Biden name.
That's the Corvette.
That's where Hunter and his uncle, that's the role they played. They did no work, but they got a cut because their last name was Biden. And part of what they did was introduce these people to their father. So we're very concerned about everyone that was involved in this influence peddling scheme. Now the documents have become front and center, and it's very concerning because were the documents part of the influence they were peddling? I mean, that is something that every American should be concerned about, and that's where our investigation is headed right now. We know a lot of the people that were involved. That had access to those documents. We're trying to get a list of everyone. That's why we've requested more information from the Secret Service.
Well, Congressman.
Good. We're looking forward to that. So the Secret Service will see if they can assemble a sort of recreation of the various logs and put those together so we can see who may have had access to those. We certainly know Hunter Biden did. He used that address for many of his personal documents. I think he put it on his driver's license as well as submitted it, I think, for a loan application or something like that.
That until the last 48 hours, and now especially since Vice President Pence found some documents, a lot of military members of Congress that have spent their careers in military before coming to Congress have said, you know, we've always believed that the military overclassifies things. So one thing that I will agree with Lindsey Graham on, and I already had this conversation with Jamie Raskins, who's the ranking member on the Oversight Committee, we are eventually going to get together and try to come up with a bipartisan solution, because there's a problem here. There's a problem with how documents leave the presidency and vice presidency and follow them into the private sector.
Do you think it's a procedural problem, or do you think it's a personnel problem? You know, there are some situations where the software works fine, but it's a user error, you know? The code's not broken. System works fine. But there's a user error. Like, for example, if you have a skiff in a basement, as Ted Cruz described it for us, and there's all these checks and protocols you have to follow, I'm sure those protocols are pretty good. But I would imagine those protocols don't include Joe Biden shoving classified documents in his socks before he leaves.
There's a problem with how the National Archives does things. So we've got to address this situation. We may be overclassifying documents, but we also need to have an inventory of what's classified and have someone make sure before those documents leave the presidency or vice presidency that they're checked and double checked to make sure they're not classified.
And they're accounted for, right? That was the big takeaway that I had when we saw that letter from Deborah Stidel Wall. She said, in response to James Comer, she was responding to his letter. He said, I need to know if there's any outstanding documents out there. Okay, to use the library book analogy, he says, do you know how many overdue library books are still out there in Biden's residence? And she says, no, I have no idea. I can't even see what he checked out or the last time he was in the library. And so you go, okay, well, that's kind of a problem. Aren't you the national head librarian? Like, aren't you supposed to keep track of that stuff? And she said, well, it's not my fault. I don't know. So for some reason, though, she knew exactly what Donald Trump had, and they wanted to raid his house to get it all back. But with Joe, they didn't even know it was there. For some reason. But you heard Comer bring up this situation with Pence, right? And Pence, I think, is probably the most straight and narrow individual out there. He won't even go into another room with a woman without his wife, evidently, is the rumor. And he had some documents. So how does this stuff happen? And what's the distinction between the two? Elise Stefanik, who was in the running to lead the GOP, got asked that question.
In the case of Vice President Mike Pence,
All right, low audio on some of these C-SPAN clips. Let's boost it.
in In the case of Vice President Mike Pence, he came forward and proactively reached out and is following the process. In the case of Joe Biden, he has had classified documents going back to his time in the Senate, where he started serving before I was born. So this is a long-standing national security threat, setting aside the very important fact that Hunter Biden also had access and used as his home address where those classified documents were improperly and illegally stored. This will be a part of the oversight agenda, and on the House Intelligence Committee, we absolutely want to make sure we have all of the facts.
Is there a concern, we've seen it with former President Donald Trump, with Biden, with Pence, that some of the top leaders just aren't handling classified information at all? Should there be some sort of reforms of how the top leaders have access to that information?
Well, let's highlight the difference here in what the consequences have been. You had the FBI raid Mar-a-Lago. You did not see any of that happen for President Joe Biden, who illegally did this. What also is different is
And
President
obstructed.
Trump, as president, has the right to declassify documents.
Biden
So
didn't.
the media should cover the fact that the FBI has been weaponized against President Trump and clearly has covered up for sitting President Joe Biden.
Absolutely right. So good for her. I think this might be a different clip. Let's listen.
Intel background. The documents, classified documents, were found in Vice President Mike Pence's home. How
The facts are important.
Okay, so I think it's the same clip, but so that's Stefanik, who is also explaining the differences between Pence and Joe Biden. And again, right, if Joe Biden had done everything that Mike Pence did and alerted everybody about this, they may have lost the Senate. They may have lost the House of Representatives by a way bigger margin if we all found out about this before the midterms, don't know. But the cover-up is way worse than the crime, right? We were all here mocking the National Archives melting down over the Trump documents. It would have been basically the same thing, right? Who cares about the documents? It's all love letters with Kim Jong-un. These people are role-playing national security competent leaders. We all know they're not. So the point is, they don't even want to talk about these double standards. They're not even asking questions. When they do ask questions, the White House just shuts them down, as we've covered this entire week and the last 2 weeks, essentially. We're going to do it again because they're still stonewalling the media at every turn. Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary who doesn't answer any questions for the press, started today with John Kirby, actually. We know that the United States is continuing to fund Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars now, endless, continual support, unwavering for all eternity. And John Kirby came out to explain this. Now, previously here, we've talked about Karine Jean-Pierre potentially being shown the door. We know Ron Klain is on his way out. She gave him a eulogy earlier on in this week. So could she be next? If Biden announces a run again, would Karine Jean-Pierre transition over to press secretary for the campaign, and could somebody else slot into her position? One rumored person is John Kirby. Now, we have heard from him previously. He was a spokesperson over at the Pentagon, and now he does more White House work. But he's actually a pretty competent individual in terms of being a good communicator. We're going to see that here. Now, he also, I believe, I don't want to presume anybody's gender or identity, but I believe he's a straight white male. So I don't think that works for the Biden White House because, as we know, a lot of their hiring decisions are based on people's pronouns, genders, orientation, identity, and all of those other things. Here is John Kirby, who's a little bit kind of, folksy. He's kind of fun and a little affable, whereas a lot of these other people just are not. Let's turn the volume back down before we nuke everybody's eardrums. Here is John Kirby, who's having a little bit of fun with the press. He comes out, he's talking about the tanks. Okay, World War whatever is coming up here soon. And Kirby is asked about the implications of the documents. What happens to our allies if they can't trust Americans to keep tabs on their security detail?
You work in national security. How concerned are you, and does the system need reform?
I'm going to defer most of the document questions to Karine. The only thing I'd say here is that you're welcome. Thank you.
Kind of fun, right? Kind of fun, kind of funny. He's deferring this over to Karine. Like, oh, okay. Everybody kind of laughs about that because they know this is not, this is not a good situation. So we have John Kirby, like he can handle the press a little bit better. Karine Jean-Pierre is just this is kind of a really difficult person to even interface with. But they asked another question, and this is John Kirby. This question came out from Peter Doocy. It's Ducey time, and Ducey asks John Kirby about the process of using a skiff. How does it work, John? You've got some national security background. Help us out here.
John, how hard is it to walk out of a skiff with classified material?
Everybody who goes into a skiff knows what the requirements are to go in, and knows what the requirements are to go out. You can't bring.
Having a tough time on that one, though.
And you certainly can't leave with material unless that material is appropriately secured.
Gets a little bit tricky there when you start trying to dive into those details. And he did kind of slow down on some of that. It's like, all right, don't want to step in this at all, because we know the standard line from the White House thus far has just been White House press stuff goes to the White House counsel's office. Anything from the DOJ goes over to the DOJ. Don't answer any questions. Kirby was feeling a little bit saucy out there. He was sort of kind of talking in generalities. We'll talk about Karine, because she says the opposite of that here in a minute. We've also got clips from Biden. He's sending 31 Abrams tanks over to Ukraine to launch World War III for us, which is going to be fun. And we've got clips of him forgetting his own Secretary of Defense. But first, let's talk about nutrition. It's very important to be healthy these days. And one of the best ways to do that is by going over to fieldofgreens.com and eating your greens. Now, we'd all like to drop those leftover pandemic pounds, and we're all sick of those ads for fat loss and fad diets and weight loss pills. We've all been there and done that, right? They don't work. You know what does, though? Eating healthy fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, I'd imagine the weight falls off. You'll feel great. But vegetables, not a fan, I know. Fruits, a lot of work. Who has time to prepare all that stuff? That's why we'll talk about Field of Greens today. This is a science-backed formula. In Field of Greens, specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism. You burn calories faster. You lose weight a healthier way. In Field of Greens, it's the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, look, you're going to look and feel healthier. And the best feeling you're going to get is when you show up to your doctor's office and he says, whatever you're doing, my friend, keep it up. You look fabulous. And you can get started today. Go over to fieldofgreens.com or brickhousenutrition.com and get your Field of Greens superfood. You can use code Robert, save 15% off your first order. Fieldofgreens.com, 15% off using code Robert, and you'll be very green, and you'll just be blossoming. You'll be blooming all over the place. And in fact, you'll be so blooming, it will look even something like this as well. Here is another sample of just how fortified you'll feel after you get your green superfood. Look at this. Absolutely out of control. It's true. I have to fix that every morning. That's how it grows every morning. I have to, it's like takes 2 hours to get ready for this show. Yeah, it's really, really a good product. So try it out, my friends, over at fieldofgreens.com. And that outstanding meme came from our friend Paul Mino at Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. So thank you to Paul Mino for that one. All right, so let's go back over to the White House. So John Kirby is explaining the skiff. Questions come in for Karine Jean-Pierre. Is Biden ever going to talk about any of this? Is he going to speak to America about his theft of confidential documents, Karine?
The president had said he was going to talk to us about this soon. He did make brief comments last week, but does he have any plans to answer the questions that we've been posing to him?
No.
Perhaps hold a press conference so that we
No,
can
understand.
No, he's not going to talk.
Totally understand the question.
Ever.
I don't have anything to preview right at this time on any opportunities for the president to address this. But as you all know, and I know questions were shouted earlier, there's many opportunities that you all have with him where he takes all of your questions, and he has over the past 2 weeks.
Answered questions.
No, I understand.
We've been shouting.
No, he's answered. Actually, when he was in California, he took a question. When he was in Mexico City, he was asked. He took a question. The day after that, no, but the day after that, he took a question. So I'm just saying that it's not that he hasn't addressed this at all. He has. I just don't have anything to preview on a potential press.
Nothing further to add. All being referred over.
An opportunity that you all will have to hear from him directly. But again, he has been asked a question a couple of times, and he's answered it, and you all have heard from him on that.
All right, long story short, no, you're not going to hear the president talk about it. Why would the president talk about it when he is, in fact, the person who might be admitting to guilt if he talks about it, right? Like the last thing they want to do is have him talk about any of this. All right, we have one final clip from Karine here. This is a fun one. The media is literally asking her if Biden's going to take other documents out with him.
And Vice President Kamala Harris leave office, no classified documents will walk away with them to places they shouldn't be.
So I'm going to be very careful.
Can you promise
here.
us anything?
As you can imagine, what I can say is repeat what the president has said multiple times. He takes classified information. He takes classified documents very seriously. His team currently is fully cooperating with the legal procedure that is happening under the Department of Justice and also the special counsel. I'm just not going to go beyond that. I'm not going to predict or lay out anything that might happen in the future. What I can say is this is something that the president, this is a matter, an issue that the president takes very seriously.
Yeah, they'll probably fall out of his socks again. There is not much they can do. It's just going to be a never-ending routine. We're going to have endless amounts of documents coming out of Biden. Now, Biden gave a speech today, and he told us a little bit more about his plan to engage us in World War III, leading to global annihilation. And you'll notice that when he was speaking there behind the presidential podium, he brought with him his two, people who he doesn't even really know. This guy, as we know, is the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. This fellow over here is Lloyd Austin. You remember him. He had like 37 face masks on, in addition to the face shield, in addition to the social distancing, in addition to the mandates for the entire U.S. military that they're all having to backpedal now. They're sending text messages out to the U.S. Navy saying, our COVID policies are reversed. Can you please come and join us now and fight for America, idiots? So he is in charge of a lot of these policies. He's leading the war. We've played many clips of him and Anthony and John Kirby on this channel about a year ago, almost a year ago in February when the invasion started, and they had no idea what they were doing. They're like, we're activating 3,500 troops to show our NATO allies, blah, blah, blah. And we think this is going to be a great deterrence to Russia. And then Russia just like said, oh, well, okay. Well, we have about 200,000 people on our side, and you have about 10,000. So why don't we just come on in? Joe Biden is now going to continue the escalation, not going the way that many of us would hope, with a quiet, calm, negotiated settlement where we can all get back to our lives. Instead, it continues to escalate, and America is now sending 31 Abrams tanks over there. Let's listen to Joe explain it to us.
And today I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, the equivalent of 1 Ukrainian battalion. Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend its territory and achieve its strategic objectives.
Now, there, he got that right because he read it from a teleprompter. And you'll notice that Austin acknowledged it. Okay, watch the little head nod. Yes, I'm in charge here.
Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend its territory and achieve its strategic objectives. The Abrams tanks are the most capable tanks in the world. They're also extremely complex to operate and maintain. So we're also giving Ukraine the parts and equipment necessary to effectively sustain these tanks on the battlefield. And we'll begin to train the Ukrainian troops on these issues of sustainment, logistics, and maintenance as soon as possible. Delivering these tanks to the field is going to take time. Time that we'll use to make sure the Ukrainians are fully prepared to integrate the Abrams tanks into their defenses. We're also closely coordinated this announcement with our allies. The American contribution will be joined by an additional announcement, including that will be readily available and more easily integrated for use in the battlefield.
Gosh, it's so painful to listen to him. He can't even hardly read the teleprompter. All right, so you get the gist of it. Now, that's reading the teleprompter. Now, this is our president who's in charge of World War III with Lloyd Austin, okay, at his side with Antony Blinken. These two people are going to lead us into World War III. Let's watch Joe Biden not even remember who's on our team.
The Secretary of State and the Secretary of the military behind me they've been deeply involved in this whole effort. Armored capability, as General Austin will tell you, has been critical.
Oh my gosh. Lloyd Austin is the Secretary of Defense. He's not the Secretary of the Military. He's also not the Secretary of State. And he's not the Speaker of the House. And he's also not that dude back there.
The military behind me they've been deeply of the military behind me
Whatever.
They've
Close.
been deeply.
I mean, we know what he
involved in
meant, I
this-
guess.
This whole effort, armored capability, as General Austin will tell you,
Speaker of the House
has been critical.
Nope. Oh my gosh, that's our president. All right, so that's who's going to be leading us into battle as we continue to fight the Russians. Now, he didn't take any questions about this confidential document saga. The press really wants to talk to him. Can he speak at all about any of this? As usual, the president makes the beeline for the door, scoots on out of there, not taking any questions.
Sir, are the searches of your homes completed?
Mr. President, when is Jeff Zients starting as your next chief of staff?
Bye.
Will you search for Hobit?
3 document questions. Door slams behind him. Sorry, press.
Sir, are the
Nada
searches
for
of your
you.
homes completed?
Mr. President, when is Jeff Zients starting as your next chief of staff?
Will you search for Hobit?
No. All right, see you guys. No questions there. Now, they also had another meeting at the White House. So Joe Biden sat down with Kamala and Lloyd Austin and some others in the White House. And, oh, actually, this was Chuck Schumer. They're also debating, in addition to funding Ukraine indefinitely and sending endless gobs of money, endless resources over there, they also, right, I mean, look, they've been charging that credit card pretty hard. Okay, Ukraine. Yes. You want that too? Yes. Yes, I want it. I need it. Okay, buy it. Okay, sweetie, you can have it. All right, swipe it again. Another store? Yes, I need it. Okay, swipe it again. Another one? Yes. Okay, well, we love you. I mean, gosh, you are the one and only thing we care about in this world. So I guess here's more money. You need us to increase our debt limit now? Our credit limit? Like we got to spend more for your habit? Okay, I guess we have to. That's how much we love you. So in Congress, they're talking about raising our credit card limit because we need to give Ukraine more money, obviously. And the press wants to talk to them about this. In addition to this endless printing of money and spending money that we don't have, they want to know about these classified documents. And so after they got done talking about how to just increase the spending, the debt limit, like they always do every time this comes up, they were asking about the documents. Biden, Kamala, and Schumer, they're all just yucking it up. They know that they're not answering any questions on this.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you.
Look at Kamala. Look at Schumer. Kamala's yucking it up. She's kind of knowing. She's like, oh, let me get this water here. Yeah, let me get that water here. I'm going to get real parched here. I'm feeling a little bit parched here because I need to hydrate so I can take this guy out and take over the presidency. But then she decides against drinking the water. She says, no, actually, I decided no. But I feel safer now that it's closer to me. Got to pull it close just so I know it's mine. Yes, that's yours, Kamala. That's your water. Yes, nice and safe right there. Tuck it away. Now, Schumer over here is just yucking it up like a little boy on 8th grade school, school night or something. I don't know. School's canceled. Weird. What is he doing? It's a bunch of weirdos. All right. So these people are in charge of our government. All right. So that's what is happening there. Now, after they had their little powwow where they pretended like they're doing anything competent, they then come out and said, we have a good plan to spend more of your money. Here's Schumer.
We had a great and productive meeting with the president, and it was one of contrasts between us, our
Chuck.
party, the Democrats, and the Republicans. Democrats are unified. Republicans are in chaos. Democrats are...
Look at this fella back here, Aguilar. He's staring at him with he won't even take his eyes off the back of his head. What's he looking at?
Aiming to help working families. They want to help the very rich.
What are you looking at, Aguilar?
One of the things we want to do on the debt ceiling, say to the Republicans, show us your plan.
Stop spending. That's the plan. Stop spending money you don't have. Stop funding everything that we can't pay for.
They've passed rules, and they've made commitments to put bills on the floor by regular order. Well, let's see what their plan is. Let's see what their plan is.
90% cuts of the federal government across the board.
Security? Do they want to cut Medicare?
Point one.
Do they want to cut veterans benefits? Do they want to cut police? Do they want to cut
food?
Look
Look at this eye
kids?
contact.
What's your plan? We don't know if they can even put one
It's
together.
good. It's good eye contact.
But we are unified in saying we are going to stand together.
Schumer probably talked to him, had a talking to him. Don't you dare break your eye contact off the back of my head. If you even think about it, you're fired, buddy boy.
And help working families and not do the things that they want to do about the wealthy.
What do they want to do? Just fund the wealthy? What do they want to do? Fund the wealthy? All right. That's who's running things in our Congress. So very little updates from the White House. We know the Republicans are very unhappy about this. They're going to go hard after the Democrats. And hopefully they get those 100,000 boxes of documents so we can see if there's any other classified material in there. We will, of course, continue to follow the document saga. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for leaving a like before you stick with us on the next segment. And we will see you on the next one. All right. And our final segment, my friends, is we're diving into some criminal law here with this ex-FBI agent. Charles McGonigal, top senior ex-FBI agent, arrested for colluding with the Russians. We've got two indictments to take a look at. One from the D.C. Circuit out of Washington, D.C., the other out of the Southern District of New York. We've got fraudulent schemes. We've got sanctions. We've got money laundering, all of this involving the Russians. Very interesting. Now, Charles McGonigal is a very senior ex-FBI agent, somebody who is at the very top. We're going to learn about it. But before we dive into the indictments and hear about what the Justice Department says this guy did, let's make sure we have some background under our belt from our friends over at Newsmax. They posted this on January 24th. They tell us about McGonigal's role in the Trump-Russia investigation, right? This is not just some rando ex-FBI agent who just got indicted twice for colluding with the Russians. This was a Trump-Russia investigator who got indicted for colluding with the Russians, all right? Let's dig into this. Former FBI official with ties to Trump's 2016 Russia investigation has been charged with providing services to the Russians. He used to lead the counterintelligence for FBI New York, okay? The head of counterintelligence for FBI New York. He's been accused of secretly working with Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska. McGonigal, along with somebody else named Sergey, is a Russian translator. They've been charged with multiple crimes. Oh, there's something at the door here. Pause that for a moment. Hopefully it's not the FBI. Let's see what's here. And we're back. It wasn't the FBI. That's great news. Tremendous news. Not the FBI. And it wasn't leaf blower guy either. But we're back in business. So it says, McGonigal was one of the key figures who helped trigger special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the allegations into Trump's campaign, saying that Trump colluded with Russia to help the former president win in 2016. Okay, this guy was one of the key figures. McGonigal, while serving as the chief of cybercrime section at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., was among the first FBI officials to be made aware of his allegations that George Papadopoulos, a 2016 campaign advisor, said that he had political dirt on Hillary Clinton. Okay, this guy initiated the whole thing. This information led to the FBI launching Crossfire Hurricane, you remember about. That would examine whether Trump officials had been coordinating either willingly or wittingly or unwittingly with Russia. In September 2020, FBI Deputy Director Jonathan Moffa said during a Senate Judiciary Committee question that he received an email July 2016 from this guy we're about to talk about, McGonigal. Okay, so in the Senate, FBI Director Moffa, Assistant Director, says that, yes, I got essentially that reporting that served as the basis for opening the case from McGonigal. All right. So the entire investigation, right, a big part of it was started by McGonigal into Donald Trump. In 2017, the FBI's work was taken over by Robert Mueller. In 2019, the Mueller report determined there was no evidence that Trump worked with Russia to interfere with the election, but they had some obstruction conversations about that. Papadopoulos was jailed for 10 days. Deripaska was also a client of Paul Manafort. Trump said on Truth, the FBI guy after me for the Russia hoax long before my election as president was just arrested from taking money from Russia. May he rot in hell, right? He's been charged with various different counts, one count conspiring to violate and evade U.S. sanctions and so on. We're going to go through that in detail in a minute. But first, let's hear from Matt Gaetz. Now that we have that background under our belt, Matt Gaetz is very excited about this indictment because he says it connects all the dots. Let's listen.
What will the American people likely learn in these hearings?
Well, there's two critical vectors that we're investigating on the Judiciary Committee. First, the extent to which our national security apparatus is corrupted by politics here at home. That's where the whistleblowers have talked about really degrading evidence that would otherwise implicate the Biden family. But this story that is breaking now, that is huge, shows us that there is also a real coercion with foreign cash that comes in and has an impact on our FBI. What we now know is that the head of counterintelligence at the New York field office was turned by the Russians, and this is the very person who helped do the intake on the initial Russia hoax. So now we have to determine when that person was turned. There could be real dangers here to national security. That's why Mr. Jordan and I want to know if there are legislative proposals or oversight endeavors we have to engage in to figure out how deep this rot goes.
Wild. So that is over from the Washington Examiner. Matt Gaetz says that they are coming in hot on this investigation because it's going to unveil a whole bunch of nefariousness that we have long speculated exists at the FBI. Now, I came across this fun clip. This is how I think the FBI thinks of themselves. I don't know where this came from. I found this on Twitter, but this is a scene from some TV show with all these FBI agents, and watch how they think of themselves. It's hilarious.
That was close.
Yeah, that was close. Yeah, baby.
You okay?
You okay?
Yeah.
Look at this very diverse group of FBI agents. Look at this. They think that they're all like ultra sophisticated, really good, healthy, fit, good looking people, very diverse culturally, equitable, all of this. You okay?
That was close.
That was close.
Well done.
What did they do? They probably just got done reporting an illegal tweet. Look at her face. She probably saw a bad election joke. Like they were joking about voting on a Wednesday or something. Fortunately, he was there to comfort her. All right, that's what the FBI thinks they're doing all the time. That's not actually what they're doing. They're engaged in all sorts of very bad things in this country, including being indicted for fraudulent schemes. Let's take a look at this charge and dive into what the FBI is actually doing. The arrest warrant came out for ex-FBI agent, very senior person, named Charles F. McGonigal. Coming out of the District of Columbia, Judge Colleen Kolar-Cotelli looking at an indictment here. This document is the arrest warrant authorized by the judge back on January 18th, 2023. Looks like they were at the JFK Airport, New York, New York. He was arrested at the airport, at the JFK International Airport. Ooh. Warrant received and the person was arrested when he landed. Bummer for him. Now, here you see the several different charges in the arrest warrant. We've got concealment of material facts, false statement, falsification of documents. The indictment is a document we're going to look at next, starting now. You see 18-page indictment, United States of America versus Charles McGonigal, 16 pages. Out of the District of Columbia for 3 different criminal violations. This is the ex-FBI agent, very senior person. Here is what the Justice Department says this ex-FBI agent did. They write, the U.S. Justice Department was a department within the executive branch. FBI was the principal investigative arm of the DOJ. The defendant in this case, Charles McGonigal, was a special agent in charge of the FBI's New York field office from October 2016. Did something important happen in November 2016? Until his retirement from the FBI in September 14, 2018. All right, so he was in charge of the FBI all the way during Trump's initial 2 years, essentially. And during that time, he was a member of the Senior Executive Service, okay, the SES. He's very senior. He's not just some lowly FBI grunt. Defendant McGonigal was responsible for overseeing counterintelligence and national security members as a special agent in charge, including those involving European countries like Albania and Bosnia, and Herzegovina, which is a country I never even heard of. Apologies to all of our Herzegovina viewers out there for mispronouncing your country's name. I apologize. They write, as a special agent in charge of the FBI's New York office and a member of the executive team, McGonigal had a legal duty to file an annual disclosure report. Those disclosures were made by the Government of Ethics reports, and they're supposed to do it accurately and regularly. They have to disclose assets over a certain amount, and it needs to go electronically into Washington. So this is them saying he has to do all this stuff. Defendant McGonigal had a duty and was required by FBI to accurately report any unofficial foreign travel, like to Russia, and any ongoing professional or official contacts with foreign nationals. And he was also required to report foreign travel to the FBI. The official and unofficial travel disclosures were required to be made pursuant to the law. Information has to go on various forms. They say that as the holder of a national security clearance, as a holder, McGonigal was required to report to the FBI accurate and complete information about his contacts. They tell us about another person, person A, naturalized United States citizen, born in Albania, lived in New Jersey. He was an employee of an Albanian intelligence agency several decades earlier, playing the long con game here. Company A was a Delaware business, was it Hunter's business? Organized, registered by Person A in January 2018. Person B was an Albanian national who was employed by a Chinese energy conglomerate. Person B also operated as an informal advisor to the Prime Minister of Albania, retaining an official Albanian government email account and a passport, and was a former Albanian senior government official. Person A and Person B were friends and business associates with each other. Person C, a national of Bosnia and Herzegovina and an advisor to the Bosnian member of the presidency. Person C, a former Bosnian defense minister. Right? All these government people in this indictment. Says that Person D was a national of Bosnia and also the general manager and founder of a pharmaceutical company. Okay. Nice background, a lot of letters. Let's see what we can tease out. They say that beginning no later than August 2017 and continuing thereafter, at least until 2019, in DC and elsewhere, Charles McGonigal, ex-FBI senior agent in charge of New York, knowingly and willfully covered up by scheme various aspects of his relationship with Person A. He had a duty to disclose that he had a conflict of interest between his official FBI duties and his private interest. He accepted more than $225,000 and traveled with that person to Europe, established ongoing relationships with foreign nationals, and got introduced to a bunch of different associates. Why did they do this, though? Why was this very upstanding and very, very honorable FBI agent engaged in this scheme? Well, the purpose of the scheme was for McGonigal to conceal from the FBI and the public material information about his relationship with this person. $225,000 along with travel to Europe. Tried to hide his private financial interests. How did he do it? Well, he signed a form, the OGE 278 form, and on that form he lied. Falsely stated that he had no greater liabilities than $10,000. Unfortunately, he did. He had $225K dumped into some account somewhere. Between September 2017 and 2018, McGonigal submitted several other documents that were also lies. He was talking about when he requested and received money, he falsely reported the nature of the travel. He falsely reported the countries visited. He falsely characterized the purpose of the travel. He said he did not meet with foreign contacts, but he did. He also failed to disclose those contacts back to the FBI. They say that McGonigal, the ex-FBI agent, engaged in a private financial relationship with Person A, and it conflicted with his official duties. For instance, among other things, they say McGonigal caused the FBI of New York to open a criminal investigation of a U.S. citizen in which Person A would serve as the confidential human source, and defendant McGonigal attempted to arrange a meeting between Person C, D, and the U.S. government authorities that would benefit Person A financially, all while concealing from the defendant McGonigal's receipt of $225,000 from person A. Wow. All right. So they make this very difficult to tease out because we've got A, B, C, D. We don't know who is whom. But the question is, this is an op, okay? This ex-FBI agent is being paid almost $250,000 to go in and run an op on some other person. He's probably holding himself out as an FBI agent. He's saying that, you know, we need to do this deal. And it's like you see in the movies, right? It's a big scam. And he's being brought into this scheme. They say in furtherance of this scheme, he had a duty to disclose this stuff. No later than 2017, he met and said, "Are you going to pay me?" He said, I'm flying on an unofficial trip to Albania. Didn't tell us who he's traveling with, person A. Didn't tell us about the lodging, that it was going to be free. Didn't tell us he was going to Kosovo as well. Didn't say he had personal contacts with other people. Person A told this FBI agent that he's working on the money and he'll start paying it little by little. McGonigal traveled by air with person A to Albania. Over the next several days, he met with foreign nationals. Nobody paid for McGonigal's lodging while there. They were talking while they were there about oil field drilling licenses, urging the prime minister of Albania to be careful, saying, don't award those to Albania. They had financial interests. They're talking about oil rights. Wow. In September 2017 in Albania, ex-FBI agent McGonigal was introduced by person A to an Albanian business person and a politician who told defendant McGonigal that he wanted someone to investigate an alleged plot to kill the Albanian business person and politician. So he's like a private contractor now. He's going to do, you know, independent research and help investigate stuff. He traveled by car from Albania to Kosovo. Following September, he maintained an outside relationship with the prime minister of Albania. He got $80,000 in cash from person A outside a restaurant in a parked car. That's your FBI, folks. Yeah, why don't you meet me outside that restaurant? In the trunk, there'll be the Hunter Biden documents. You just drop in the $80,000 in cash. Now, in the fall of 2017, at person's A residence in New Jersey, McGonigal showed up twice. The second time he got $80,000 in cash. The third time he got $65,000 in cash. Then he submitted another form to the FBI. Didn't tell us about any of that. Didn't tell us he had a relationship with Albania. Didn't disclose person A. Right, it's all forms. He didn't fill out the forms. Now, person A came and attended one of these meetings as an interviewer. They traveled by air. They met with person B over dinner and drinks. Again, it would be really interesting to know who these letters were. On November 25th, 2017, defendant ex-FBI agent informed the DOJ about a new potential criminal investigation involving a U.S. citizen who had registered to perform lobbying work in the U.S. on behalf of an Albanian political party. One day earlier, he had received information from person B about the U.S. citizen lobbyist. He dined with person A and other people from Albania. He forwarded new information to other FBI agents. Traveled for 3 days in February. And so he initiated an actual investigation into a U.S. citizen lobbyist. Person A was later identified by the FBI as a confidential human source. He had another dining meeting in Washington. He communicated with the FBI, $225,000. Here we go. On June 25th, 2018, defendant McGonigal, ex-FBI agent, proposed to person A that person A and company A enter into a contract with person D and person D's pharmaceutical company. So he's arranging the deal. McGonigal's proposal included that company A would be paid $500,000 and the pharmaceutical company would be done in exchange of scheduling meetings with the U.S. delegation to the UN, right? So they're just sort of moving money around to get deals done. Defendant McGonigal confirmed to person A by electronic communication that he had resent the same proposed language, and they're asking now to protect McGonigal's name, right? So pay him under the table so nobody knows about it. They said that Company A would receive 500 grand in exchange for scheduling a meeting between the pharmaceutical company and someone from the UN, right? 500 grand to get a meeting. McGonigal provided the FBI liaison proposed dates. And man, so he just got paid to basically set up a meeting. And then when he did it, he improperly filled out the form. Count 2. Lying statements provided on forms to the government. Count 3. Knowingly, willingly made false statements, including travel. Count 4. Fraudulent statements and misrepresentations to the U.S. government. Count 5. Materially false and fictitious and fraudulent statements. Count 6. Same thing. Count 7. Same thing. Count 8. Same thing. Cover up. Count 9. Same thing. All right, boy. All signed here by a foreperson of the grand jury and approved by Matthew Graves from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So that is the first indictment out of the D.C. Circuit. Let's take a look at what the Southern District of New York has to see if they have anything else interesting that maybe is a little bit beyond forms. From the Southern District of New York, we see the second indictment against Charles McGonigal, the ex-FBI agent accused of colluding with the Russians. Here's what this indictment says. And remember, the SDNY, we've covered a lot of cases here. In fact, the GM case was out of this court and many others were. The U.S. attorney out of this court is named Damian Williams, young guy, and I think he's fairly aggressive, right? I think he's sort of trying to make a name for himself. So let's see what we have here. They write, Charles McGonigal and Sergey violated sanctions imposed by the United States. McGonigal is a former senior official with the FBI. Sergey is a Russian diplomat. McGonigal and Sergey agreed to investigate a rival Russian oligarch in violation of sanctions. They knew that this plot was in violation of their rules. McGonigal received classified information that Deripaska would be added to a list of oligarchs. And after McGonigal left the FBI, he went and worked on behalf of him. He tried to get those sanctions lifted. So he became sort of an outside contractor, an independent ex-FBI contractor. They give us some more details. They tell us. Charles McGonigal, the defendant, served in the FBI from 1996 to 2018 before he went and worked for the Russians. During his FBI career, McGonigal worked as a Russian counterintelligence and organized crime matters, also on counterespionage and other areas. Beginning in 2016 until he retired in 2018, special agent in charge of New York, supervised and participated in investigations involving Russian oligarchs, including Deripaska. Amongst other things, in 2018, while acting as the special agent in charge, he received and reviewed then classified list of Russian oligarchs that would be considered for sanctions as a result of the conflict with Ukraine that started back in 2014 this time. Sergey was a defendant, also worked for the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation for some period of time. Oleg is a Russian national. There are some laws that say, that you can't engage with foreign entities that are problematic. This is one of the laws. President blocked all property interests with the Russians. National emergency was declared. President expanded the scope of the executive order. All of these rules and regulations are in place. President blocked this, blocked persons list. On or about 2018, Deripaska got added to the sanctions list. Then it gets bad. In or about 2018 now, while McGonigal was still serving as a special agent in charge, he's still at the FBI. The Russian introduced McGonigal via an email to an employee and an agent of Deripaska, another Russian oligarch. Agent 1 was formerly a diplomat with the Foreign Affairs, and he worked for Deripaska. He was the foreign agent representing Deripaska. In the summer or spring of 2018, Sergey and McGonigal were asking to help Agent 1 get an internship at the NYPD for Agent 1's daughter in the field of counterintelligence, terrorism, and liaisoning. McGonigal agreed to help and requested assistance from the NYPD, saying, I have an interest in her father for a number of reasons. Can you help her daughter get a job? McGonigal also informed the FBI supervisor who worked for McGonigal that he wanted to recruit Agent 1 as a Russian intelligence officer. Through these efforts, Agent 1's daughter received VIP treatment from the NYPD. An NYPD sergeant assigned to brief Agent One's daughter subsequently reported the event to the NYPD and the FBI because, among other reasons, Agent One's daughter claimed to have an unusually close relationship to, quote, an FBI agent who had given her access to confidential FBI files. And it was unusual for a college student to receive such special treatment from the NYPD and the FBI. Wow. So an NYPD sergeant busted an ex-FBI special agent in charge. Don't you love it? Shout out to the local police, and actually shout out to our very special Sergeant Bob, who is in our locals community. Sergeants, local cops, way smarter than the FBI agents. This ex-FBI agent, like, yeah, I'll just pawn this girl off on the NYPD. The NYPD busted this dude talking to this young girl, and she's like, oh, this dude has a real interest in me, showing me all these confidential files. Busted. Shout out to the NYPD sergeant. The 2019 law firm engagement then. Then McGonigal retired from the FBI, making a lot more money being a spy. Agent One sought to retain a law firm to work on having the sanctions lifted. During the negotiations, McGonigal traveled to meet with Deripaska at other locations in London and Vienna. In electronic communications that they probably have now, they did not refer to him by a surname, but they called him the individual and our friend from Vienna and the Vienna client. At the conclusion of negotiations, Deripaska personally signed an engagement letter with the law firm, said that they're going to try to get him removed from the sanctions list. Pursuant to the fee agreement, Deripaska was going to pay the law firm $175,000 per month. Woo, it's a nice little fee there. The law firm retained McGonigal as a consultant and an investigator. He wanted $25,000 for that work. Now, I'll be honest, like, this is not that unusual. Like, all of these are crimes, right? But there are situations where ex-officers become criminal expert witnesses, right? Criminal defense expert witnesses. They do consulting work. So like you'll have a crime lab technician, somebody who does the testing, the analytical work for DUI analysis. They'll leave the crime labs and they'll go become criminal defense consultants. We work with many of them. So that in and of itself is not necessarily illegal, but the fact that he was still working at the FBI and then violating all of these sanctions and doing all of these things when he was clearly conflicted is highly illegal. Their work was interrupted by the pandemic amongst everything else. The defendant illegally worked for him. They say beginning in the spring of 2021, Agent One began negotiating to retain them to work for him directly. They've got emails. In the emails they're sending back and forth, you know whom, the big guy, the client, and all of these other phrases so that they don't have to admit they're working for this person. They exchange contracts, $51,000 here, $41,000 per month for business intelligence services. They had corporate email accounts. In order to conceal McGonigal's work for the New Jersey Corporation while he was still employed by the FBI, they created false names and false cell phone accounts. He had a burner phone. They forged payments. They were doing all sorts of illegal things. They had different subcontractors involved. They had dark web files that could reveal hidden assets valued at more than $500 million. McGonigal believed that this stuff would be valuable. He wanted McGonigal wanted Deripaska to purchase the dark web files on the dark web. So they continue to lie. Here are the different allegations. 1, conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. So violating sanctions. Count 2, also sanctions, Economic Powers Act. Count 3, money laundering. Conspired to misrepresent the true nature of the transactions. Count 4, money laundering as well. Concealed property, transferred them, false statements, lied to the FBI, false representation in direct forms to the FBI. They say he should forfeit all of the money, all signed by, there it is, Damian Williams, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Indictment was sealed before it was released. And so this FBI agent is in for some serious charges, and we'll see what happens there. I'm sure he's going to hire some very good lawyers, and we'll continue to see what the case has for us as we see more discovery and more facts are revealed. But that's the FBI, right? That's a senior FBI agent who was responsible for investigating Trump for Trump-Russia collusion. Never existed. He was colluding with the Russians. Do you think this is an aberration in the FBI? I don't. We'll continue to cover it. I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. So that is it for us on the day. We covered a lot of ground. Did I read the gold commercial? I don't think I did. Let's make sure we get the gold commercial here because we got carried away. But we don't want to get out of here before talking about gold because, as you know, things are scary out there, my friends. If you've got an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, you know things aren't looking good. The Biden administration has printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined, and the national debt is over $31 trillion now. Inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends at Goldco. See how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Very easy. Go to robertlikesgold.com. They'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account at robertlikesgold.com. They're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. They're good friends of the program. So check them out if you're interested in protecting your retirement and your savings at robertlikesgold.com. All right, my friends. That is it for us on the day. And so we're going to jump over and see what you have to say about this soon over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. But I think I saw a super chat or two come in from our friends over on YouTube. And so let's say thank you to everybody over there. And let's say hello to our friends on Rumble and our friends over on Twitter and see what you have to say, my friends. Here's a couple that came in. First one is from Miguel Labra. What's up, Miguel? He says the following. He writes, for those 3 boots that had to get close to those 3 left logos. Oh, it's a violin. First shift. Goodbye. I don't know how that song was supposed to go, but thank you for that one, Miguel Labra. For those 3 boots that had to get close to those 3 left logos. It's a violin. Bruce Rice is here. He says, I think the 502 modified docs on the white paper next to the woods. I think there are 502 modified docs on white paper next to the woods. From Bruce Rice. Is in the house. Bruce, you're talking about Biden's documents? 502 modified docs on the white paper next to the woods. The woods in Biden's house, I guess is what you're saying? It's going over my head, Bruce. For some reason, I'm not catching it. I should have taken that super chat earlier. But thank you for the dono, Bruce. Kevlar says, to help keep the lights on, always a great show, Rob. Starting to like McCarthy more and more. Thank you, Kevlar. Yeah, I agree. Right? He's looking good. He's looking spicy as can be. I'd like to see more of that. Who else is here? Fred Pedamonte. He says, Robert, my dog jumped on the bed again today and said, I've been working with Russian intelligence since you bought me. You're bugged. Help. Oh, man, totally screwed on that one, Fred. Oh, no. So Fred yesterday had another dog issue. He says, yeah, my dog just jumped on the bed with 2 DOD classified documents in his mouth. What should I do? Please help me. So he found the documents yesterday. And then today, it turns out he's Russian intelligence too. Oh, man, you're totally screwed, Fred. You're totally screwed. I mean, well, gosh, I don't know what to say. I guess maybe you should just move to Russia at this point. Call Edward Snowden, see if he can help out. Go live with him. He probably could use a bunkmate. Good luck. Here's another one from KT Rainbow with a nice red rose in the house. That's very romantic. Thank you, KT. It's very nice of you. I'll cherish it forever and ever. Let's do a refresh over here on the YouTube. I saw another one come in from our friend Norman. Shout out to Norman Smith. Says, thank you, Rob, for the information and the analysis. And thank you for being here, Norman. And thanks for supporting the work that we're doing here with your dono. Very grateful for you. I appreciate it very much. All right. And let's see what else we had over from our friends on Rumble. We got a great community over there. We're building up our Rumble channel. We're grateful for our friends. Let's see who's in the chat. Over on the chat. Vientikis Prime, anything. User 1112 is there. We got Sportfish in the house. Blue Bunny. We got Sedona Rocks is here. What's up, Sportsfish? User 1121. NC Native is here. Along with anything, says, my new daydream, live in a city and never see a liberal. Oh, gosh. Could you imagine? Heaven. Where is that? Where is that utopia? I don't know. Thank you to everybody over on Rumble for joining in the chat and for watching the show over there. I'm grateful that you watch on Rumble. Let's also check out another free speech platform, our friends over on Twitter, and see what is going on over there as well. In Elonville, we have a whopping 5 viewers on Twitter. It's out of control. Now, it's good. You know, we got into double digits earlier this week, and it scared me a little bit. So it's good. We're back under reasonable levels now. 5 viewers. So everybody over there, it's probably Paul, 2 devices, me, and some other guy. So shout out to that other guy. Let's do a check on some of the posts so we can see what we have going on here. Oh, yeah, Fight Night. We got Fight Night coming up. All right, good. We got some good posts over here on the Twitter thread. Let's see what else is here. From our first one is from Rebecca John. Is posting this image. Is this a Harry Potter person? I don't know. I've never seen the films. Here's another one from Rebecca, which is a leafy green, very leafy green person on the head there. Sort of looks like me. I like it. That came in from Rebecca John, another one. Here, this one is from Paul Minot. He says, I will be using a Taylor Swift song for my walkout. It's not ironic yet, but it will be. All right, so this is our fight night between Paul Minot and myself. Paul Minot is at Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. If you're not already following him, you should be, because he puts together some very spicy memes. But Paul and I, we have a little bit of a throwdown going on. Later on in the year, we're not exactly sure when it's going to be, but Govea versus Minot, amateur fight night. And it's going to be probably, we don't really know yet, okay? And I'm pretty confident in my skill set, but Paul brought up something very kind of scary, is that old man strength, right? You really don't know what old men are capable of. And so I'm not that nervous about it, but we'll see. There's still some time on the clock. We'll have to get down to it, but I'm looking forward to it, Paul. And Taylor Swift, yeah, you can come walking out to that. Very fitting. It'll be perfect for you. Yukon says McCarthy is doing a solid job. It makes you wonder if McCarthy was in on Gates and company holding out, so when McCarthy would put some of them on the committee, there wouldn't be so much backlash. I'm probably looking into it too much, though. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It was probably just politics. Like Matt Gaetz just wanted to throw some elbows and get some good clicks, and it worked. And he's being very, very, very reasonable, I think, now. Very accommodating. He's not causing any ruckus at all. In fact, the Republicans seem like they're operating pretty well. This one came in from Paul Minot. He says, let's see here. It'll start over. Yes, G's. G's can be very confusing. G's have been confusing humanity from the Garden of Eden all the way to the Battle of Gettysburg. Yes, G's. So we have an ongoing debate here on this channel as well about GIFs versus GIFs. And so I think he's saying like Gettysburg, right? He's my, yes, G's. Yes. Like the Garden of Eden and the Battle of Gettysburg. All right. I get the point, because he wants the hard G, the GIF, right? All right. Danny says to train for the tanks is over a year. And I think we talked about this at one of our watchingthewatchers.locals.com member only morning streams, where I asked the question, is there an upper limit to the amount of equipment that Ukraine can have? Like, at what point do they run out of people to run the equipment? Is that ever a thing? Or do they have a limitless amount of people, but the only limiting factor is equipment and money? Or can we provide too much stuff, right? Like, is there an upper limit to how much we can provide? If they said, look, if you give us $12 trillion, it'll be everything we need. We can buy everything that we ever want. Do we know what that number is? Does it exist? Is that a thing? I don't know. But this guy from Star Trek says war is good for business. That's true. And he's very interested in money. I remember him. Fergie or something. Is that her name? Danny says, started with 15 viewers, Rob. Woo. But it probably broke, huh? So everybody had to leave. Danny's talking about we helped fight in World War I, World War II. But would anybody help us? James Pepper says, who is watching the Watchers? The intelligence community will be investigating Schiff, Omar, and the other one for security leaks. Says Swalwell's upset because he says Swalwell's upset because now nobody has any reason to sleep with him. It's a good point. Yeah, Deplorable says you can't make this up. The FBI started out bad and it remains worse. We've got Prita here. We've got a couple more before we jump over to locals. We got Prita says it's not easy being Green Karine. That's right. Get that chia pet hair growing out of your head. John Doe says, need many more conservative criminal defense attorneys. I agree with that, John. I agree with that, John. Putting out, the SOS for more criminal defense attorneys to speak out about equal protection, justice, due process, and accountability. Omnipotent says, Swalwell, Omar, and Schiff have expertise, all right. In lying, Dean Gilberry says, in my opinion, bureaucrats are not helping anyone when they're making life-changing decisions and aren't elected or held accountable. Yeah, I mean, they're making life-changing decisions for themselves, aren't they? TJ says that Trump declassified these things since Trump acquired Mar-a-Lago, turned it into his winter White House or Southern White House, declassified all the materials. Good stuff over there from our friends on Twitter. And thanks for following us over there too at Rob Govea ESQ. If you are on Twitter, would love a follow and a follow, follow the other watchers, right? Follow the other commenters and connect with people. We're trying to build a community and restructure the informational supply chains out there all across the fruited plain of our world. But that, my friends, is it for us. Actually, I think we had a tip or two come over from our locals friends before we were going over to locals for an after party, which is where we kind of, we hang out. We really do the fun stuff over there after the show. But I did see some tips come in and I wanted to acknowledge those here before we jump off. Jeffrey Davison sent this one, but it can't load right now. What the heck is going on here? So Jeffrey Davison said this one, but it didn't load, but then sent another one. This one says, please don't tell why his hair turned green after you've seen The Boy with Green Hair. Color by Technicolor. My goodness. This looks like a horrific film. Hopefully they figure it out what happened. Too many Field of Greens, man. Moderate yourself. Pace yourself. MNL Hay says, great show, Rob. McGonigal is in deep doo-doo. That is true. He is in deep doo-doo. A lot of charges. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see. Molly Dolly is here. He says, Molly Dolly sent a tip in from locals. Says, some think Roe versus Wade decision draft leaker should be flushed out by compelling all law clerks to sign a document stating whether or not he or she leaked the draft. Well, I would like to know who leaked it. I am not sympathetic towards the person. And I'm not sympathetic towards the person. Doesn't this trample on the person's First Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights? First, we are compelling speech, and then under the threat of perjury charges, we are expecting the leaker to incriminate himself or herself. What do you think? Great question, Molly. Yeah, and so this is sort of something that I think we have to be careful about sort of a public-private distinction here. It's a public organization, right? It's the Supreme Court. But think about it this way. Like, what if this were a private company, could you get away with this? Could you say, look, I need you to sign to all your employees. I'm not an employment lawyer, so I don't know. But if you said to your employers, I need to know who leaked this document, all your employees, who leaked this. And if you don't sign this, you're fired. I think most states, you could say that's perfectly fine. Right? It's at will employment, and you can just terminate it and just say, no, you didn't sign this deal. This is a new policy. I need to know who leaked this thing out, and you're fired. This is our new policy. And I think in many states, you could get away with that. Yeah. And here, if you treated the Supreme Court like that type of an institution, they could say, well, we just don't need you as a law clerk anymore unless you sign this document. Otherwise, you're gone. Now, I think that's probably how I would interpret this situation, right? Like the justices have no obligation to keep the clerks. Like if a judge wants to say to their staff, I want you to do this thing. And if you don't do it, well, I'm not going to work with you anymore because I don't trust you. You're fired. I think that's different than like we were listening to Molly. I think yesterday we were listening to Alan Dershowitz, and he was talking specifically about sort of compelling them to disclose the source, which I think is different. So there was a different conversation about journalists being asked to disclose the source of the leaker, right? Which being compelled, in other words, to disclose the source of the leaker. That I think is a major First Amendment right problem. So disclosing the source, it's like disclosing if an employee leaks, like, just pick any other example. It's not the Supreme Court. Like, let's say or not even a government institution. Like, let's say Monsanto is doing something bad, right? And a whistleblower leaks about Monsanto, and then the journalist gets the leak. I think that if you tried to compel the journalist to disclose the source of the leak, that's a First Amendment violation. If Monsanto tries to pass policies that say you have to sign a promise, I didn't leak it, and anybody who doesn't gets fired, right? That's almost like what happened with Twitter, honestly, right? Twitter did that, basically. Twitter said, do you agree that it's going to be a lot harder here now? Yes or no? They said, no, you're okay, you're fired. Type of the same thing. Molly says, another follow-up. What if the leak turns into a criminal charge? Then the person has already outed himself or herself, right? Yes, they would have outed themselves. Well, first of all, if you're going to leak, don't you lie on the form, right? If you're going to be dishonest about internal operations, are you really that person who has qualms about being honest on a form? Probably not. But the point would be, a person could choose not to incriminate themselves. A person could just also write, basically say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and you can't use that against them. So a person could just say, I'm not willing to sign this form, and they couldn't use that as evidence of criminal liability. They could fire that person for that, but it would be not a criminal charge if the person wanted to do that. Again, right? I think some people might just say, I'm not signing your stupid form. I'm out of here. But it is a Supreme Court clerk position. So I don't know. Very good question. Zulu has been a member for 11 months. Thank you, Zulu, for being a member for so long and for being a mod down the fort for us. He says, I am a member, a big member, says Zulu. Zulu is a big member. Definitely a big member in the chat for sure. I think you mean other things though, right? Probably a social club, like a big member in a social club, like the president or the treasurer, probably like a big member treasurer. Huh? Zulu. That's impressive, man. Congratulations. All right. And so that is it for us on the day, my friends. We are going to leave it right there and go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And of course, I hope you do join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, before we wrap up, thank you to our sponsors and for supporting them. Our friends over at 4patriots.com. Food, survival gear, 4patriots.com. Save 10% off your next order. Also, check out our friends at Goldco. RobertLikesGold.com. To protect your retirement with gold and silver, visit RobertLikesGold.com. Get your free kit sent to your house. Of course, our friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition. Field of Greens. Keep you nice and healthy and vibrant and feeling energetic for all of your daily activities. Go to brickhousenutrition.com. Get your Field of Greens, your superfood, and save 15% with code Robert. Also, our friends over at the R&R Law Group, our law firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. We help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope, and we look forward to your referrals to see who else we can help out there. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com. Thank you to the mods who keep things nice and orderly in the chat. Our friends Vienticus Prime, K-Bean, Just Cause. We've got Lean, who we miss. Hopefully we see her again. Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, and our friend Geomancy, who comes by from time to time. Thank you to the mods who keep things orderly in our house, and we're grateful for you as well. But that, my friends, is it for us. We're going over to Locals for a bit of an after party, and I hope to see you there. But if not, it's all right. We'll be back here tomorrow to do it all again, and I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a great night, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.